Do you love soul-deep, magically bound, and absolutely no way out love stories? That, my friends, is why we need to talk about the fated mates trope today. Welcome to Reading Under the Covers, a romance novel podcast where we chat, fangirl, and maybe even swoon over our favorite reads. I'm Francesca from Under the Covers Book Blog, and welcome to another edition of Trope Talk, where we're deep diving today the trope that launched 1,000 book boyfriends in paranormal and fantasy romance. That is the fated mates trope. I think we all know the one. There's two characters that are cosmically destined to be together, usually through some magical, biological, or psychic bond. It's usually intense, it's swoony, and often chaotic as well, and it shows up across so many subgenres, from shifter romances to romantasy to even some alien books where the hero is 100% not human but absolutely obsessed with their one true mate. This is one of those tropes that either hits you right in the gut or makes you question all of your reading life choices, sometimes both of them in the same book. But what is exactly the fated mates trope? So let's start with the basics. This trope is when the main characters are literally destined to be together. Their bond is not just romantic or sexual, it's often soul deep, it's unbreakable, and completely outside of their control. Now, sometimes there are mystical or ancient magic, other times it can be a biological imperative, like their bodies or instincts know things before their brains do, and oftentimes it's actually tied to them either surviving or dying if they don't complete the bond. The fun of the trope is actually about seeing how the characters deal with all of that. So do they lean into it immediately and kind of go with an insta-lovey story? Do they fight it? Are they even aware of it? And when it's done right, it can actually feel like the most satisfying version of "you're just the only one for me" kind of soulmate, but except there's claws and fangs and some mind bonds involved in most of the cases. Now, the first thing you need to be aware is that there are some sub-tropes or niches when it comes to the fated mates trope itself. I have a post with 9 of the most popular ones on the blog, and I'm going to leave that link down below, but I'm going to talk about a few here today and give you some recommendations for those as well. And also, the fated mates trope is actually part of different subgenres of romance, so you can find it in those as well, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. So let's start with the sub-tropes that are most common when it comes to fated mate tropes in romance. The first that is super popular right now is the rejected mates. So this point is where one of the characters, usually it's the heroine, completely refuses the bond. And not in the "we'll get there eventually" kind of way. It's a full-on "nope, we're not doing this, take your magical soulmate mark and just leave" kind of thing. It usually comes with heartbreak, with emotional whiplash, and of course a possible second chance romance. It's in the cards. Now, one of the reasons that readers really gravitate towards this, and especially in recent years, there is a slow burn tension, there's longing, there's groveling, which makes these super angsty books, and readers just absolutely love them. Now, this is common in paranormal romance and fantasy romance, and especially in dark romance. One example of that is Rabid by Ivy Asher and Raven Kennedy. This one is brutal, it has pack politics, it's primal, and the heroine, she's been cast out, but she's not going down quietly. Another trope is the multiple mates, which is basically a reverse harem fated mate story. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting, right? So we're going a little more spicy, and instead of just one fated mate, the main character is connected to 2 or more with still that same magical bond. So it's not like the fated mate is one and then there might be another character involved. There is actually a bond with multiple people. Now, they're not always happy about that, I will say. Sometimes the mates fight each other, sometimes they share, sometimes it gets really spicy really fast. And if you're into reverse harem, and especially those kind of dynamics, but you want the emotional intensity of a soulmate bond, this is probably the best place for you to start. A good example of that is Power of 5 by Alex Lidell, where there is a mortal woman that is fated to 4 fae warriors. There's tension, power struggles, and a whole lot of chaos. Lots of magic, lots of fae in this one. Then there's the fated mates, but they're enemies. This one is super, super popular. And of course, it's been popular for a really long time. We have 2 people who are literally fated to be together, but they also want to stab each other. This is basically your enemies to lovers version of fated mates. They are maybe from rival clans, they're from warring kingdoms. Maybe she's human and he's a demon. Doesn't matter, destiny will tell them where they need to be. And we love it because there's that forbidden tension as well, and that slow surrender that will come from that, the moment when they actually realize that they can't fight it anymore. A good example of that is Ruthless Demon King by Nikki St. Crowe. He is a literal demon king, and she's a mortal who is not here for that. But Faith is just telling them, figure it out. And the last one that I'm going to touch on here is the Dark Fated Mates. So this is where things are going to get a little bit more morally gray. The mates are obsessive and sometimes downright dangerous. You get all of the intense soulmate energy, but you also get some extra bite with it. It's emotional, but it's very high stakes. It can get toxic, and it's the kind of emotional drama that will hit you in the best way. A great example of that I absolutely loved was Nightshade by Keri. The hero is this raven-winged recluse with serious don't touch me energy, and the heroine has been caught in something that is way bigger than she expected. The tension between them is delicious, and of course this is a duology, so you're not going to get the full story in the first book. There are even more very popular sub-tropes within Fated Mates, and I've got a full breakdown of those on my blog, so definitely check that out. I will leave the link below if you want to see even more, and there's going to be even more recommendations for the ones that I've talked about here already. And before we go any further into the subgenres of Fated Mates, I want to take a second to talk about how the rejecting the bond isn't actually a new thing, because yes, there is this whole new trend about rejected mates, and especially in reverse harem and Kindle Unlimited books, it is where one or more characters just flat out refuse their mate connections, and that becomes the entire emotional arc of the book. But honestly, the fighting of the bond has been a part of the Fated Mates trope since the early 2000s boom of paranormal romance. It was just more emotionally subtle back then. If you go back and read authors like Nalini Singh, Christine Feehan, Sherilyn Kenyon, J.R. Ward even, what you'll see is that even when the mate bond is instant, there's almost always emotional resistance, especially from the heroines. The heroines were usually saying, no, thank you, I didn't sign up for this growly destiny thing, and I have a job, I have my own trauma, my own trust issues, and they would just try to move on with their lives. So there was that tension between instinct and choice that was the emotional fuel of so many books from that era. The hero knows, the heroine is like, no, not until I say so, and honestly, that push and pull is a huge part of why this trope works really well. The bond might be automatic, but the relationship still has to be earned. So that was always there, and even if it's been repackaged a little bit, or there are aspects of it that have been highlighted a little bit more in certain sub-tropes right now, it was always part of the journey. So why do we love Fated Mates so much? Here's the thing, Fated Mates taps into the core fantasy of being chosen. It's not just liked, not just loved, you are chosen by fate. So it's inevitable, it's magnetic, it's a soulmate, but with drama, of course. And sometimes that destiny is inconvenient or painful or super steamy, but it always forces the characters and us readers to explore the why behind the bond. Is it just instinct? Do they actually grow into loving each other? And I think that that's what makes this trope so interesting. The bond might be magical, but they still have to work on that relationship, which I absolutely love to see that journey. But, and you knew this was probably coming, this trope is not always perfect. It's actually one of the most problematic romance tropes, I think, when it's not handled with care, and sometimes even as a problematic trope, it can be enjoyable, or at least for some readers. So let's be real. If a character's entire identity or romantic choice is erased because fate said so, that can feel very icky. So one of the major issues, of course, is consent. If a character doesn't have a real choice or is physically punished for resisting the bond, it can cross a line, and especially when the power dynamics come into play. So let's not even get into when it's actually used to override things like past trauma or agency. Then there's, of course, the emotional shortcut that some books take, because just because two people are meant to be doesn't mean that we can skip the emotional work of falling in love that is usually associated with a romance book. And if the only reason that they're together is because of fate, then that's not satisfying. It's actually kind of lazy. And then there's the other point of being that there's paranormal beings involved. A lot of them are very old creatures, and they may have some mentality that comes through and can be a bit overly possessive. and domineering, and it may come across as them forcing themselves on a situation or being a little extra pushy where it doesn't feel right. So while I absolutely love this trope, I think it works best when it's paired with some earned emotional connection. So all of the cosmic bonds, but make me believe that they chose each other even without it. All right, so if you're in the mood to dive into some fated mate stories after this, because let's be honest, that's what you're probably here for, here are some recs that I've broken down by subgenre, because again, this actually presents itself within different subgenres of romance. I'm gonna kick things off with fantasy romance or romantasy. If you want some magic and prophecy, some deadly fake courts, or some cursed dragon princess, fantasy romance is really where it goes all in with the fated mates trope. The first one is Court of Ravens and Ruin by Eliza Raine. We have a human slave who is forced into an arranged marriage with a fae prince, and deadly secrets, powerful magic, and of course that undeniable bond they both pretend not to feel. Then one of my favorites, Radiance by Grace Draven. I think this is a classic, and it's an arranged marriage between two people who find each other hideous by their species standards, but they fall into this beautifully slow and unshakable love. There is no insta anything, it's just vibes, mutual respect, and it becomes something deeper. It's an absolutely beautiful story. And A Ruin of Roses by K.F. Breene. This is a cursed dragon prince who's locked in a castle and a fiery woman who stumbles into his path. Some cursed mates, slow burn, and a Beauty and the Beast vibe with claws. Now for some of the classics, Paranormal Romance is where it's at. So if you like your fated mates with vampires, werewolves, curses, and a side of eternal angst, these are the ones for you. One that I don't see talked about enough is The Last True Vampire by Kate Baxter. He's the last of his kind, ancient and powerful, and her blood calls to him in a way that changes everything. So this is equal parts gritty and emotional, and if you love vampire romances, definitely check out this series. The Darkest Night by Gena Showalter has a cursed immortal warrior and a human woman with secrets of her own. Think Greek mythology meets paranormal angst with an instant connection that is super explosive. And A Hunger Like No Other by Kresley Cole. This one is iconic, but I will say it's one of the more controversial for some of those problematic tropes that I just mentioned before, because our hero, yes, he can be a little pushy and possessive and a little extra, but this is about a feral werewolf king, a half vampire heroine, and an obsessive bond that kicks in really hard between them. If you want kind of unhinged alpha energy and soulmate drama, then this is where you would start, and I absolutely encourage you to dive deeper into the whole Immortals After Dark series. And then last, we're going to touch on sci-fi romance, where you're going to find biological bonds, alien instincts, and mating drives. It just gets weird, emotional, and very hot. The first one is also something I don't see talked about a lot. It's Saving Askara by J.M. Link. This is about a human woman who rescues an alien prisoner, and turns out he's her fated mate. But it's not just chemistry, it's a bit political, it's emotional, and the stakes are really high. It's great for fans of a slow burn survival romance. Broken by the Horde King by Zoey Draven. This is a human woman who is forced to serve a powerful alien warlord, and surprise, he's not just her captor, he's her mate. This one is high heat, high tension, and full of that I will burn the galaxy for you vibe. And last, I Married a Lizard Man by Regine Abel, because yes, the title sounds weird, but we already did the blue alien thing, right? So we can do Lizard Man. Trust me, this one is super tender, it's slow burn, and it's about an arranged marriage that turns into a real emotional fated mates romance. Plus, he's a total soft-hearted protector under all of those scales. This is just basically scratching the surface of fated mates. I have a ton of recommendation lists on the blog where you can dive into more must-read books. So I'm going to leave a couple of things linked in the show notes down below where you can check out even more books. And if you've read some fated mates romances and have your favorites, don't forget to leave those in the comments and tell me which ones are your best and favorites. Which subgenre do you love to read fated mates romances in, and which is your favorite subtrope? If you're tuning in on YouTube, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any content from us, and subscribe for free to our Substack so you don't miss any content that we post across all of our platforms. But for now, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this trope talk, and stay tuned for even more fun content this week. I hope you find something wonderful to read this week, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!